Ariana. I'm a massage therapist at Northwest Wellness. I'm coming to you today from my home to demonstrate how to give your partner or anyone living in your household a nice neck and shoulder massage. I know so many of us are coming up close to a year that we've been at home, and for those that are high risk, it has been a lot harder to choose to go out and get some good care, as well as those who are having chronic issues with pain or tension at home. Sometimes it just feels nice for in between those sessions to have a partner or a household member relieve some of that neck and shoulder tension for you. So today I'm going to go over a few different setups. We'll start in the dining room in a dining room chair. Going to probably do a setup as well in the living room with a couch, so you can choose what's best for both of you. You always want to make sure that the person giving as well as the person receiving are both in a comfortable position that works for both of you. And then from there, you'll normally want to have some kind of emollient. This just helps give a little bit of glide to the skin and make it feel like you're not just tearing the skin as you rub the neck and shoulders. And of course, usually with neck and shoulder massages, your partner will already be wearing clothes, so it's not like you're going to need a whole bunch of it. But definitely it can help, again, to make your partner feel more comfortable. Some products that I normally like to use that are easy for people to obtain, we've got a jojoba oil, and this you can find at Trader Joe's is where I found it the most easiest. You can also, in your oil aisle at most grocery stores, get a grapeseed oil. That can work really well also. And then coconut oil is also a great one. If you're going to use coconut oil, definitely make sure that you have some kind of separate dish and tool to scoop it out with. Don't really want to stick your fingers in there. That way, if you want to use it for cooking or you want to use it on other people, there's not a whole bunch of cross-contamination going on. So usually I just use a spoon, have a small plate that I'm going to pull it out on. And again, because it's neck and shoulders, you're really not going to need that much. That might be even being extra generous on how much we'll really be using. Once you've got your area all set up, the emollients that you want to use are handy. You've got your chair set up where you want it. That's when you'll bring your partner in and get them seated. All right, and today I'm going to be using my lovely husband here to demonstrate just a nice neck and shoulder massage in a seated dining room chair. Like I said, using just a small amount of emollient, especially the coconut oil. It's one of my favorites for doing stuff at home, and just, you know, get it warmed up in the skin. And like I said, you're just using this to make the skin not feel like you're tearing it as you rub it in. Biggest thing to always remember that I hear with clients who are having their partners rub them is sometimes it's really easy to go right to those spots that hurt and just go too deep too quickly. You really want to get that muscle tissue nice and warmed up from that superficial level, going down deeper to help prevent those muscles being sore. It may seem like it's nothing special, but really just some rubbing feels really good. So we're gonna get, this area is the suboccipitals, and it's definitely an area a lot of people feel a lot of tension, especially with computer use, laptop use, reading, cell phone use, all those lovely things where we tend to look down a little bit more. We have these scalene muscles also down the side of the neck that come in and attach to the ribs. So they definitely will start to play a little bit of that combined neck-shoulder feeling, especially this area right where the neck and shoulders meet. That's an area where a lot of people always feel like they feel a lot of tension or pain. So we're just going to continue here. If you feel like your person's head's bobbing around too much too, you can always support the forehead so that way they can relax their neck a little bit more and you can just get in there a little bit deeper. How's that feeling?
It's great.
Awesome. Of course, always want to check in with your partner too to make sure it's a comfortable pressure level for them. And I know, being a massage therapist, my hands are a little bit more used to rubbing somebody. So I do hear a lot of times people's partners can only get in a few minutes before their hands start to bother them. So there are ways in these seated positions where when you're rubbing, you can lean in with your body to give you more of that pressure so you're not being so tedious with the hands. So we're just coming down here. This is, you know, everyone knows the traps through here pretty well. And we've got a little bit deeper muscles called the Supraspinatus, which is part of our rotator cuff muscles. So always like to, you know, get in there and start to loosen those. We got these Levator Scapulae that come back here off the edge of that scapula and into the neck also. Another area where a lot of people get knots and tightness. And then, of course, starting to come down the middle of the upper back, that in-between shoulder blade area that a lot of people also tend to feel tightness and discomfort in. And a lot of just, you know, thumb circular motions or squeezing feels pretty good. Still feeling good?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And then one thing you can do too with this Levator Scapula area is you can pinch it and with your thumb and finger turn it like you're turning a key. And that will kind of start to bow the muscles in there a little bit. And you can just hold them. Sometimes you'll feel some spasms in there. And that's just some of that muscle releasing. Of course, you always want to make sure you're not pinching too hard. You know, most of the time I'm sure your partner is going to tell you if it's too hard, but does that feel okay?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So obviously if we pinch really hard, does it start to hurt?
It's a little too much.
Yeah. Muscle rolling is another good technique. So almost like you're gonna knead dough, but when you pull up with your fingers, you're trying to push the bottom of the tissue through and kind of roll the top over the bottom. And that will really help some of that superficial tissue kind of start to break up more of that deeper stuff without you having to really be forceful and getting those tender pressure points in there that sometimes we tend to do. And then, of course, with our shoulders being a part of everyday life and many of us being in this more hunched position, looking down at things, sitting, etc., you know, coming out here and getting some of those shoulder cap muscles can help. Sometimes even just putting your body against your partner and pulling them back to help kind of stretch some of this pectoral area. You can even use your hands to just slide out and pull, give them a nice little stretch. Feel a good stretch in the center of your chest?
Yes.
Good. And of course with these shoulder cap muscles, like we talked about, some of these rotator cuffs in here, with that hunched position, a lot of times everything in the front is being shortened while everything back here is starting to be over lengthened. And we'll feel a lot of it here because these muscles are constantly kind of trying to pull themselves back to where they think they should live, while everything up here is being shortened and pulling that way more. So that's why it is good to release the front, but make sure you're also paying attention to the areas that do bother people. It may not necessarily be the cause of what is making things tight, but it is important to also rub those areas where they feel discomfort or pain. And again here, just doing kind of the squeezing with the thumb circular motion. You'll be able to feel, everyone knows where that beloved scapula is, and there's some soft tissue in there before you get to the more bony ridges of it. And that is where that infraspinatus start of the rotator cuff muscles are. And then once you feel like you've got a lot of stuff nicely released, you can come in here and just wiggle things around. Pinching here is what I'm doing while I push forwards and pull backwards at the same time. Almost like your kitty paws kneading you. And then as you start to say goodbye, sometimes it can be nice to do what we call a little bit of tapotement, just some nice tapping. This can be an exciting move too, so if you're doing this in the middle of the day and everyone has to go back to their regular lives and be a little bit more attentive, this can kind of help things still feel relaxed but energized. And if it's nighttime and that's not your option, you can just do some nice long strokes as you mentally say goodbye to your neck and shoulder massage. Feeling better?
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so like we talked about earlier, I'm going to show you a slightly different setup using a couch. This can sometimes be nice for people who do have a lot of neck and shoulder tension and you want to be able to release some of those muscles a little bit more. This way they have something that they can lay their head back on to release some of those muscles. And then also for you as the giver, you have something to rest your arms on, so it becomes a little less tedious to be holding your arms up while you are massaging your partner. Go ahead and put your head back up for now. Just off camera, I have my coconut oil, like I said, that we're going to be using. So I'm going to just take a small little amount of this. Really don't need that much. Melt it into your hands. And then just kind of spread it in those areas where the skin is exposed, so you kind of prevent some of that tearing of the skin feeling. So if you like, go ahead and put your head back here. And then from here, as opposed to that pinching motion that we were doing when he was seated and his back was more exposed, you can use your fingers here and you can get into that suboccipital range a little bit more. I do sometimes just take my first two fingers and start at the base of the head, more towards the center, close to that spine, and just slightly pull all the way out very slowly to the ear. Feels good. Good pressure. This can be a very tender area for some people. Sometimes when people have a lot of tension here, when you press really hard, they can feel a lot of pressure in their eyes. The suboccipitals actually move your eyes side to side. So if you ever want to have a little fun experimenting session, you can dig your fingers in there and move your eyes side to side and feel the muscles contract. Sometimes it can creep people out a little bit though, so up to your discretion. So I'm just doing this a couple times to release those suboccipital muscles. We do also have a lot of our muscles that do attach here just below the ear, as well as some that do attach around the ear. People who are clenchers, grinders, have to wear those night guards. It can be nice, you scissor your fingers and just friction back and forth, and that gets a lot of those attachments in there. You can bring it up here, just kind of claw your hands a little bit and friction against this temporal muscle. The lower portions of this muscle do assist with jaw movement, so it can be an area for people who are clenchers or grinders to store a lot of tension. Or if they just are really headachy people, it can also be a good area that can help release a little bit more of the neck muscles down below it. Still feeling good?
Oh yeah.
And these temple muscles, they do come all the way out almost to those eyes, so you know, it is a very broad, wide muscle, so you can just kind of go back and forth with those slightly clawed fingers. And when you're doing this, you don't need a ton of tension in your hands. That can cause your hands to cramp or be tender or hurt after a while. So definitely just slightly enough that you're getting a little bit more of that fingertip pressure along that side of the head. And then from there, you can kind of come back down here, press through these side of the neck muscles, because again, this position does afford you the ability to have them be more relaxed. Sometimes when I work in this area, I will hold the head so that I can move it around and get those muscles where I want them. These three scalene muscles, they do attach kind of in slightly different regions. And so sometimes when you're working with them, shortening them, which will be bringing the head back and slightly down for the rear posterior muscle there, can also help you release it a little bit more. If you straighten the head and then again bring it towards the side you're working on, that gets that middle scalene to be shorter and release better. And then the front one, you're going to, again, cradling your head, move it front and down and get that front muscle, which definitely this front of the neck, when we are looking down a lot, can become an area that gets very tight. You know, again, everything in the front being shortened while everything in the back being over lengthened, you know, makes us feel more tension through the back, but needing to release the front to help that tension in the back go away. So here, you know, you've got, everyone knows the beloved collarbone. I do like to just kind of dig my fingers down into this area, and that will, again, release some more of these scalene muscles. We do also have this, and again, this can feel like you're kind of choking people when you work on it, so not always an area you have to venture into, but when I do like to release where things attach into this collarbone muscle, I will get the edge of what's called the, for short, SCM muscle that comes up the side of the neck here. So I'll just dig my fingers down into that area. I'm using all three of my fingers here, and you don't gotta press in very hard, again, because it's an area that's tender. Definitely not something that you want to go digging in. Sometimes a couple pass-throughs is what you're gonna need to start to feel things soften. I know some people are not good about being able to feel where things are tight. I've heard that from clients that their partners can't feel those tight strands or even the knots, which is fine. Not everyone has that ability, but the muscles should feel almost like silly putty, you know, not so much resistance against your fingers. So now that I've passed through there a couple times, you know, there are still little remaining lingering tight spots, but for the most part, the muscles feel much more pliable, like I want them to. And so again, you know, coming down through here, squeezing these tops of the shoulders, doing that oppositional push and pull is a good one here. And then from here, you're not really going to be able to stretch the front of your partner very well. You can apply a little bit of pressure, but this is definitely going to be a setup that gives you a little bit more for the neck than it does for the neck or the shoulders and the upper back. So we'll focus a little bit more on some neck stuff. The head does really kind of like, if you find these little bony pieces here, just some slight pulls up. And it doesn't take much pressure for your partner to feel a difference. Does it feel like I'm lifting your head off of your neck?
Yes.
Yeah, like you're growing. And of course, everyone loves at the end of the massage when your therapist kind of pulls their hands down in between those shoulder blades, drags them up. You want to center here on the spine as you do this, and while you pull your hands up, it's almost like you're just pushing the vertebrae just a little bit, and then you find those little ridges again and just do a slight pull up, and that can be a good way to kind of say goodbye to your partner as you finish off their neck and shoulder massage in this position.